Welcome to a terrible football show. As you can see, I'm not Alex Light because he's still on vacation in Florida, enjoying all this, watching us try and figure this out. But so I'm going to intro here who you have today, Ricky and Shane. They're going to be y'all show's hosts. I'm just going to do some intros here, and then I'm going to peace out. So I hope y'all are ready for this. A show without Alex. Have y'all done one of these before?
We have. We did one. I did one with Tyler way back in season 2, I think, maybe. Production was not the best, but hey, we worked through it.
Hey, sounds good. Well, I'm just going to run through some stuff here. So, of course, we got our sponsors and everything. Rogue Energy, got to check them out. They got their cans coming out. Have y'all seen those flavors? They look good. Tropical Breeze, Strawberry Burst, and Cotton Candy. I'm ready for those once we can get our hands on that. Wayward Beard Company, of course, and Agent Ink. Once we get all that stuff out, that stuff looks fantastic. Everything that Alex has shown me has been absolutely fantastic. So I'm really looking forward once we can actually show more of that off. Of course, check out our Discord. You can find the links down below, as well as our website at SparkE3.com. With that, I'm going to pass it over to you two, and I'm going to peace out for a while. All right?
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, welcome to the Terrible Football Show. It's just gonna be a me and Ricky show today. Got a lot to talk
Jacob's
about.
still running the fake punt for Ohio State.
What?
He's still running the fake punt for Ohio State. So yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha. Gotcha. So it's this me and Ricky show today. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, to discuss. Got a lot of stuff coming up this week in college football and pro football. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Rick, do you have a? I forgot. You have a Twitter, right?
No.
You don't. Okay.
I'm called Twitterless. All right, I'm Twitterless.
Got you.
Maybe I
Okay.
should get one. Maybe it's time for me to get one, so that way I can be a part of this Twitter thing. But it's okay.
It's all right. Follow us here at Terrible Football Show at shit. I'm a horrible host. I forgot what the Twitter was.
That's okay. Just follow us.
Anyways, links down below. Links down below. That's for mine and for the show. Of course, like you already said about Agent Ink, we got a lot of stuff coming out with jerseys and more and stuff coming out in the future that will be released soon. Wayward Beard Company, check them out with all your great beard stuff. Rogue Energy, check Discord links, yada yada. Anyways, let's jump into it. Pro football or college football? How we starting today, Rick?
I think we started with college last week. Let's start with pro this week.
Alrighty. Some pretty major matchups this week, especially some games that I did not expect to go the way they did.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, it's the life of football. So let's get started. Let's start with the Bengals Dolphins game. I had some interest in this game. Of course, when it goes to fantasy, you had Jamar Chase playing in this game. But I think the big one here is Tua goes down with another injury. Clearly another head injury. That's what, in my opinion, 2 in 2 weeks. I know they released something about Tua earlier, like maybe 15 minutes ago. I haven't got to check the news on it yet or not. But what are your thoughts on that?
So Shane, I believe it was his second one in 4 days because I believe they played that previous Sunday and then they ended up playing on Thursday. I think it's time the NFL, if they're gonna have Thursday games, they need to put about a week and a half in between them. I think that's one of the biggest issues that I've seen with this NFL schedule. I understand it's professional sports, and I understand like right now, of course, Miami will not have another game. Well, they'll play this coming Sunday, but as far as the schedule goes, I think if you're playing on a Sunday, you technically get 3 days of rest. You'll get that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then of course you play on Thursday. That's very tough, Shane. Even for a professional football team, that's extremely tough. I was officiating a ball game last Friday night, and one thing I noticed of course, let's just put it this way. I notice this every week. Some of the greatest athletes to some of the athletes that aren't so great. One of the things I noticed about football players, Shane, is they're limping off the field when the game is over with. Like they're limpy because they're sore. Your body has to rest. You have to have that time period that you just have to have some rest. And for whatever reason, you could blame the doctor, you could blame whoever you want to. this is on the Miami Dolphins as a whole, and I understand the doctor was fired over this. This is on the Miami Dolphins as a whole. Tua should not have played Thursday night, period. Should not have even touched the football field. They should have sat him out, put him in the concussion protocol anyway, which, in my opinion, should have been the issue as it was. So, I mean, good win for Cincinnati. I mean, let's give it to Cincinnati. Miami has looked extremely good, especially the first 3 weeks of the season. Of course, this past Thursday was their first loss, but in the log run, they got to have Tua healthy in order to go forward.
I mean, I agree, and I mean, with this whole scheduling thing, I think the NFL continues to just completely fumble the schedule. I mean, you've got teams playing in England or London, and then coming back the next week and playing, right? So they fly to London whatever the day they play that game, and then they come back and they have a Sunday game. Or I think even the Packers this year or next year, they play a team in London and then come back and play on a Thursday night. Like that's absolutely ridiculous.
Hmm.
I think not only should you have a bye week, but you should definitely not be playing on a Thursday night when coming back from London, especially if you're. I mean, I know technically Wisconsin's not West Coast, but I mean that whole trip is just ridiculous. I mean, and now they're talking about teams playing in Germany. Um, Mexico's a lot easier when it comes to that, but I mean, this whole scheduling thing's hurting the NFL right now, in my opinion. Not only with viewership, because I mean, here in America, I mean, I know, at least I know us here in Arkansas, they're 6, 7 hours ahead of us. So I mean, if they're playing if they're playing a noon game in England, that's 6 o'clock in the morning for us. Who's gonna wake up? Unless you're just an absolute diehard fan of whoever's playing over there, to wake up at 6 a.m. to watch a game.
Right,
Um,
and here's the thing, Shane. I have zero issue with teams going overseas and playing. I think it raises the popularity of the game because you have some of these teams that are overseas. They're not used to American football. You look at London. Everybody knows that England is their version of football is soccer. That is what they're used to. They're used to soccer. They're used to being good at soccer, things of that nature. Well, here in America, it's football. Well, they get a chance to watch some of the best athletes that you're going to see play this great sport. And, I have zero problem with them going overseas and playing a game. But like you were saying, I do have a problem with the scheduling. You should not be playing in London or whatever it is. You should be playing in London and then coming back for 4 days, which I know this wasn't the case. But if it does, like you were saying, in a future case, like with the Green Bay Packers, um, that shouldn't be the case. And the one thing, Shane, that really bothers me about this entire thing is we keep hearing more about injuries. We keep hearing more players going concussion protocol. Yet we're playing another regular season game versus what we're used to seeing. We went from 16 games to 17 games, and in my opinion, I think going to 17 games is a huge mistake. It's not about whether or not you don't need that one more game to determine a playoff spot or anything like that. If you can't find a way to have 14 to 16 games and be able to determine who the best teams are, then that's a problem. You and I both know, usually we know about week 8, week 9, and sometimes even a little bit earlier than that, we know who's going to be in the playoffs and who's not. Well, they don't need that extra week. So it's just like you said, they're fumbling this schedule, this whole entire thing. I'd be fine if they went to 2 bye weeks a year instead of just 1. There's something that has to be done to that because we cannot see an injury like Tua's. Because like I said, even though like I said, I'm not the biggest Tua fan, but the way that he has played the first 3.5 games of the season clearly shows that Miami needs him to win.
I mean, yeah. I mean, is it too far to say that within those first 3 games, and even leading up to that injury with Tua, I mean, he was definitely on the list for the way too early MVP talks. I mean, yes, because I mean, he was a starting quarterback of an undefeated team, and he wasn't playing. I mean, he was playing his position. He was getting the ball to his playmakers, doing what he's supposed to be doing. And then in the grand scheme of things, I mean, yeah, I don't have any issue with games being played over there. but it's how scheduling is matched before and after that game, right? I think if you're gonna put teams in that situation, you have to build the schedules around those games because if not, you are gonna have a situation like what just happened with Tua. You're gonna have a guy on 3 days rest going out there and playing against, professional athletes that are there to beat the crap out of you. And like you said, even on the high school level, at the lowest levels, even Pee-wee, I mean, you would have kids and high school players coming off the field limping, or they're having issues getting their stuff off to even go to the locker room. There's got to be a somehow to better fix those schedules because I mean that's absolutely outrageous, and it really frustrates me because they're changing the game so much to because of player health, right? But then yet the NFL itself is not doing the number one thing, the probably could be a biggest issue biggest fix for the issue is scheduling. How can you have a guy that yes, given the Dolphins should have not had him play, or come back in the game last week and then play this week, but at the end of the day, they were playing on 3 days rest, right? I mean, they played Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they play Thursday. One of those days is typically a rest day. And then and then Tuesday, Wednesday, they're practicing and watching film on the game and whatever it may be. Like there's not a lot of time there to rehab to rest. Even with having a full day off on Monday, if that even happens, because you're watching additional film because you're losing out on 2 days. So I don't really agree with it. But moving on to the next game, Chicago and New York Giants. Um, so Giants came out with a victory, of course. Danny is hurt, of course, and so kind of seeing how that's going to come up with that game. Did you did you get to catch any of that game?
I didn't really get to catch any of that game, or I'd say any. I didn't get to catch much. I didn't get to catch much of that game. But they've got to figure out how to get some more offense from Justin Fields. I understand he was 11 to 22. Yeah, he was 11 to 22 for 174 passing yards. Um, that's okay, I guess. But and of course, 149 yards rushing is fine. But they also gave up 260 yards worth of rushing with the New York Giants. And so, no, they've got to figure out a way to get a little bit more offense. You get a little bit more offense from someone like Justin Fields, you're not scoring 12 points in a game. And of course, the New York Giants, I will give them this much. They are a little bit better this year than what I expected them to be. I did not expect them to win very many games, and right now they're 3-1. And so, I expected Chicago to win this game, and it didn't happen. But they just got to get a little bit more offense under their system, and some of the big plays. They gave up way too many big plays.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the box score now. They gave up 262 rushing
That's way too
yards.
much in an NFL game. Way
Um,
too much in an NFL game.
Saquon himself had 31 carries for 146 yards. No, no, I'll give him this. Saquon is a great player, and I'm glad he's looking like the player that we know him to be, right? After those injuries that he had, pretty much missing a year and a half or so, if not longer. But yeah, Chicago defense. To me, when I think of Chicago, I think of a very, very good defense. That's always what I've
Especially on
always
the
known
running,
them to be.
especially a running defense.
Exactly,
Especially on the
and
run.
for you to give up 262 yards, and for a team that Daniel Jones, I think he went down at some point. Tyrod came in, and they were just pretty much just feeding Saquon the ball. Like you knew what they were going to do. They were going to
Yeah,
hand the
that's all
ball
they
off to
did.
Saquon Barkley. So in my opinion, that was kind of that was very poorly done. Um, any thoughts about any upcoming games? Got Jacksonville, Philadelphia, which I mean Jalen Hurts still looking to me and very very good. Um, but me personally, I want to talk about this Jets and Steelers game because I've got $20 coming my way, boys.
You sure did, yeah, because you picked the Jets to win that game, and who was it that bet you? Was it Alex that bet you?
Yeah. And then he also bet me that that Kenny Pickett would be a starter by week 5. Guess what? He was announced a starter today. Next week is week 5.
See,
So
and I'll be honest with you, I'm somewhat shocked and a little bit of a way, considering that it is Pittsburgh, and I wouldn't think Pittsburgh would start a rookie quarterback so quickly. With that being said, if Kenny Pickett doesn't get the job done, they have nowhere else to go this season. They might as well fold, and which the way it's looking right now, um, they're going to end up having to fold before too long. It's just they're horrible. They're that terrible, Shane. A team like it blows my mind to an extent because I look at Pittsburgh and it wasn't that long ago. They had Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell on the same team, and then they had a stacked defense on top with it. They had a Super Bowl winning caliber team with a bunch of egos, and it all falls apart one by
yeah,
one
I think
because
that was
money talks, and so
I
yeah,
mean
oh my
that was
goodness,
like what 6, 7 years ago. I mean they were
yeah, and it
definitely
was
a
it,
top 5 team in the NFL. I think the only reason why they didn't even get a chance to get there, I think they may have made the AFC Championship game that year, but I think Big Ben had some injury issues that he was
mhm.
trying to come over. But I mean, yeah, I mean, let's put it this way with the stats. Mr. Trubisky goes 7 of 13, 84 yards and a pick. And then of course Kenny Pickett comes in. Now his turnovers is kind of concerning. I didn't get to watch the game, so I don't know exactly when he came into the game. But I did see on Twitter and stuff like his very first NFL pass was intercepted. But he does go 10 of 13, 120 yards. Um, and by what I heard and seen, he had them in a position to still win the game even with those 3
Yeah,
turnovers.
yep.
Um, but hey, and then again, shout out to Zach Wilson. His first game back. I didn't expect him to be back this week. I figured they'd set him for another week, but he comes back. Because I think Joe Flacco got hurt, right? Or he was something was bugging him why he didn't play.
I
Um,
believe so. Yeah,
but yeah, Zach Wilson comes in, 18 of 36, 252 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. And of course he had that touchdown catch, right, to pretty much win the game. And the gritty that went viral on the internet. Won't talk about that because there's a lot of mom jokes in that. So
no,
um,
there's a lot of yeah. We won't go there.
yeah. So I mean, in all, Zach Wilson, I mean, he completed exactly 50% of his throws. Almost a 300-yard game. He looked all right. But I think Kenny Pickett will do well. I don't think right now Steelers fans are expecting much. Even if it is Kenny Pickett starting this week, which I mean they already announced that he is, but I mean I think they came in this year knowing that they were not going to be very good or competitive. And honestly, I'm
Finally,
surprised that they're even 1-3. I very well expected them to be 0-4 right now. Even with the Jets, with them playing the Jets, and I thought if they were going to get a win that it was going to be against this Jets team. So that's kind of surprising there, but I look forward to seeing what Kenny Pickett does next week. Going back to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles game real quick. Trevor Lawrence still looking like Trevor Lawrence.
I think he had a couple of bad turnovers. I think that's what really cost Jacksonville the game. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to be fine. It just one bad game. It happens.
Yeah, I mean there wasn't a lot of um throwing touchdowns in this game. Trevor Lawrence 11 23, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. And of course he was also sacked 5 times for a total of 26 yards. But then Jalen Hurts on the flip side, you've got 16 of 25, 204 yards, no touchdowns and a pick as well. But hey, shout out to Christian Kirk. He's doing his thing. He's somewhat earning his money. 2 catches, 60 yards. Um, but me, I think right now though, it makes me excited that Jacksonville kept this game as close as it was, because in my opinion, I've got Philadelphia like number 3 in my NFL power rankings personally. Um, I think they're playing really well right now, and I think if they can keep on going, I know you're a Cowboys fan and they're in the same division, but I did have them winning the division. So again, one of my predictions here, kind of looking all right.
I had the Cowboys win the division, just because the simple fact is Cowboys still have a little bit more experience on their side of the ball than what Philly does. But I did have Philly. I had Philly splitting with the Cowboys. I did have them splitting with the Cowboys whenever we did the scheduling early on. One of the encouraging things about this game, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Jacksonville had a 14-0 lead, and then their defense gave up 20 in the second quarter. That you can't do that. That's one of the biggest things that you just cannot do, even in an NFL game. Back in the day, you didn't see that very much. Usually, if you had a 14-0 lead, you rode with that 14-0 lead. But either way, Jacksonville's going to be fine. They have time to recover from this.
Oh, for sure. And I think the number one reason for that is, back in the day, it was, you know, here on October Football Show, we always kind of throw out there like, no matter what level it is, pro, high school, college, it's the game is win or lost in the trenches, right? Offensive, defensive line. And back in the day, that's what it was, right? I mean, you had running backs like Jerome Buss, um, you had Brandon Jacobs in New York. I mean, you had all these big, hefty running backs that were not scared to punch you in the mouth. And typically they were behind a big offensive line too. But now with the offense in the NFL, especially being so widespread and so high powered, that it's difficult. I mean, definitely in my opinion, the offense in the NFL has the upper hand, especially with all the quarterback calls that can be called.
Well,
Um,
the rules
yeah,
favor the offense now.
Oh, for sure, and especially, and it doesn't help. Like I said, I mean, a lot of these teams are spreading you 4 or 5 wide, and not only that, but you've got running backs now that are pretty much wide receivers back there as well. So back in the day, we didn't really see a lot of that. I mean, players like LaDainian Tomlinson, they kind of broke the mold with being able to do that. But nowadays, this is an everyday thing that if you're a running back that can't catch the ball out of the backfield, you're probably not going to get a lot of looks. So it's a lot harder to hold a 14 point lead than it was back then. But merging on, but my talk about the Cowboys, you finally got a prediction right with the Cowboys, Ricky.
I got a prediction right with the Cowboys. I got a prediction right with the Carolina Panthers. Hey, I think I've gotten every one of them at least one right. But yeah, speaking of my Cowboy, of course I can speak for Jacob since he's not here. But hey, Cowboy haters have been quiet now for 3 straight weeks, and I absolutely love it. And I absolutely love the fact that we're winning. Shane, our defense is solid. I think that is the biggest thing with Dallas right now is the defense is just solid, and and of course you look at oh gosh, his name I just drew a blank. I
Who you
just drew a
thinking?
blank. I just drew a blank on our backup quarterback.
Cooper Rush?
Cooper Rush. I just drew a blank all of a sudden. Anyway, long day, people. So anyway, so Cooper Rush, I think one of the biggest things with him, he's just not making many mistakes. He still has yet to turn the ball over, knock on wood. He extends drives. He does everything you expect to within an NFL quarterback, and I truly believe right now. Of course, I know that Dak's probably going to be the starter when he gets back, but at the same time, I think you start scratching your head. Why are you paying these quarterbacks so many millions of dollars when you got a guy like Cooper Rush? He's getting the job done. He's still undefeated as a starter, which I know that eventually will go away. I'm not I'm not stupid. But you look at the here and now, he's still undefeated as a starter. He still hasn't turned the ball over. I think he turned the ball over once last year against Minnesota, but this year he has yet to turn the ball over. So I mean, until then, guys, I mean, Dallas is going to be a tough team to beat. You're not going to score many points. They have yet to give up a 20-point game yet, and so and I don't know. I haven't looked at their schedule, but for the foreseeable future, um, right now at least, we still may not see that. That defense is tight.
I mean, yeah, I think the only thing right now that could kind of hurt the Cowboys, is that run game. We still haven't seen
Yeah,
anybody kind of pop off the stat sheet. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott had pretty much 20 carries for 50 yards. I mean,
we can't have that.
that
We
I
can't
mean
have that.
that's terrible. I mean, his longest run of the day was 7 yards. Tony Pollard 8 carries, 6 yards, and his longest of the day was 9 carries. I mean, and Cooper Rush, as far as he goes, he he is the epitome right now of a game manager, right? He knows what he has
Yeah,
to do to win the game. He's taking care of the ball, not trying to play hero ball, not trying to do too much or not do enough. He's doing just enough to get the win. I mean, 15 to 27, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And shout out to the offensive line. I mean, he's only sacked 1 time. So, and as we know, Dallas Cowboys, they've had a very good line for majority of the last 20 years. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that rush game's definitely got to get better because clearly their offensive line is keeping Cooper Rush up. Um, to where it's got to be something. I don't know if they're messing up on their run schemes and not protecting the right gaps, whatever it may be. But you've got to figure out that running back position right now. Now given it was against a not very good Commanders team. I mean, you had Carson Wentz throw the ball 40 times. I mean, and it's kind
Yeah,
of
and
that same thing. Um,
that's something else. I don't know what the Commanders can do now. I mean, they have. I don't think they've won a game yet, have they?
they're 1-3.
Okay, so they did win a game. I thought they were 0-4 for some reason,
I
but
think
either.
I think they won their first game of the year, and they've lost 3 straight. I believe. Like I said, I don't have the
Okay,
schedule in front of me, but
I'd have
I
to.
believe that's right. But I mean, yeah, I mean on Commander side, Carson Wentz goes 25 of 42, 170 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, you can't have a quarterback unless you're Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady throw the ball 40 times and think they're going to win the game. It's just not going to happen. I mean, their running back Gibson, 13 carries, 49 yards. Now, shout out to former Arkansas Razorback Jonathan Williams. He did get 5 carries and made the most of it. 5 carries, 48 yards. His longest run of the day was 23 yards. So hey, hopefully he can kind of get into that rotation and maybe bring some light to that god awful run game that Washington has right now.
Yeah, I mean that's just a big thing. Washington is just terrible, across the board, and I think they're going to be for a while. They're going to have to rely on their draft. They're going to rely on their draft picks coming up to even try to have a chance to compete.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, Washington's got so many areas that they've got to fill. Yeah. I mean, they're
They
on the
just
bright
need
side.
they need to start all over. Get rid of Carson Wentz, get rid of everybody. Keep Jonathan Williams, of course, because he's the Arkansas guy. Got to keep the Arkansas guy.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
get
yeah.
rid of everybody. Get rid of everybody. Start over. You know what? They should just have an open tryout. Just have an open tryout. Just like what movie was it that I'm thinking of? Inventable with Mark
Yep,
Wahlberg. Yeah,
yep.
they just
And
need to
that's
do
what
that.
the
Have an
Eagles.
open tryout. There's someone there that wants to be a Washington Commander, which I think that's a joke of a mascot, a commander, but it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't. Commanders definitely wasn't one of my favorites, but it is what it is. But talking to about one of my teams now, the Seahawks. They come out and get
Oh,
a
a
win
high
against the
scoring game. High scoring game right there.
very high scoring game. I mean, there was 93 points scored between both teams. Um, Lions are kind of disappointing me this year. They have a good roster. I think it's just kind of behind Jared Goff. Why they're probably not doing as well. Let me pull up the box score here.
I
But
don't
yeah,
I don't think so. I mean, they're just young, Shane. I mean, they're still super young. I wouldn't put it all on Jared Goff right now. I mean,
I
you
mean, yeah,
just look at the
he
roster; they're just
just
young.
yeah, just looking at the box score, he didn't play bad, but again, he threw the ball 40 times. He was
That is
26
true. Yeah, and
He was
you can't.
26 of 40, 378 yards, 4 touchdowns and a pick. Now, given that is very good stats, I mean, that's over 60% completion, almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. Um, I don't know their running back. Is it Jamal Williams? Is their running back?
I think so.
But I mean, he had 20 carries for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I mean, T.J. Hawkinson 8 catches, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. They have offense. But I mean, clearly by what we can
Hmm.
see from this game, they can't stop nobody. And honestly, I don't know about you, but going into the year, I thought their defense was going to be their strength of this team. But giving up 48 points,
And
that's
it's just been flip flopped.
yeah. And
Yeah. So
honestly, I
right
mean,
now, right.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say right now, Jared Goff has 1,126 passing yards. That's third in the NFL. He is tied for first with 11 touchdowns. He only has 3 picks, and his QBR is at 67.1. It's Jared Goff's doing just fine. They just need to pick up their defense.
Yeah. And on the flip side, I mean, they came back in this game. I mean, I'm looking at the box score here. I mean, at the end of the third quarter, they were down 38 to like 16 or 17 or something like that. And they put up 22 points in that fourth quarter to bring this within a field goal. But hey, and also shout out to Geno Smith. He is statistically playing better than Russell Wilson right now. In this game, he's
Yeah.
23 of 30, 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very surprising of what Geno's been able to do. But again, I think it's just kind of a thing to where he's managing the game. He's not forcing anything. He's not playing hero ball. He's just getting the ball out to his weapons on the outside and letting them do what they need to do. Rashad Penny had another 17 carries for 151 yards this game. Maybe a staple in that run game. We know he's kind of been inconsistent here and there, but hey, I mean, put up 150 yards in a game, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and of course Geno's also just making the moment of it. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean,
Oh, for
it's just
sure.
the career that he's had. How many teams? Let's see, how many teams has he played for now?
I think 4 or 5.
Trying to think. And I know it's on up there. I might have to look that up because it's gonna eat me alive if
Yeah,
I
for sure.
if I
Yeah,
don't
go
look
ahead.
it because
You
it
can we can look that
it
up, but
seems it 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 seems like he's been in NFL forever. I'll just put it to you that
it
way. It
really
just
has.
seems
It
like
really
he's
has.
been in the NFL forever.
Because he was part of the 2011 or 2012. I think it was the same class as Andrew Luck, right?
Let's see here. His rookie year was 2013,
Yeah, so he got drafted.
with the
Yep.
Jets. Yes, he was with the Jets. He's been with the Jets, the Chargers. Oh, this is his third team. Okay. He's been with the Jets. He was with the Chargers 1 year, in 2018, and then now he's with Seattle.
Okay. I thought it was like more as a 4 or 5 range, but yeah, I mean, and then I mean on the flip side, DK Metcalf doing the DK Metcalf thing, 7 catches, 150 yards. Tyler Lockett, 6 catches, 91 yards. They've got weapons. I mean, we clearly see that they've got weapons to be a good offense. And like I said, Geno's just doing what he needs to do. He's taking the moment in, and I mean, putting up points clearly, scoring 48 in an NFL game is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, the Chiefs did put 41 up on the Buccaneers, though.
Yeah, true,
But
true.
it's the Chiefs. But it's the Chiefs. We know the
Yeah,
Chiefs. We expect the Chiefs score that every week.
yeah, they have potential of doing that every week, every single week. Titans and Colts. This game kind of surprised me. I know, me personally, I picked the Titans to win, but I thought the Colts are still a better team. But they come out and just lose. I mean, they lost 24-17. And even with them losing, they were still able to hold the Titans to scoreless in the second half and still somehow lost. That blows my mind. But I mean, what can you do, right?
I told you guys before the season started, and I know it's not all Matt Ryan's fault. I'm gonna tip it. I know it's not all Matt Ryan's fault, but I told you guys Matt Ryan's time is up. It's time to go somewhere else, and we've seen it. We've seen them down by 20 something points, and them have to come back from 20 something points. Um, in this case, I think it was 24-10 at the half, and they only scored once the entire second half. So their defense played well in the second half. They just didn't play well in the first half. Now this team's a mess. I mean, they're 1-2-1. You might as well say 1-3 because a tie, you don't win, you don't lose. It's a tie. It's horrible. To me, that counts more of a loss than it does anything. So I mean, yeah, you still only have a 1-win team, and this is a roster that is. I mean, you look at this roster, you look at their names, and you just see nothing but stacked. And this is why I told you guys I've got Jacksonville going 9-8 and to winning the division this year. And I know the Titans have played well, but I still have the Jaguars winning this division.
I mean, yeah, and right now with how Jacksonville's playing and how kind of the Titans and Indianapolis has not really played up to their potential. Because I mean, you're right. I mean, the Indianapolis Colts, their whole entire roster. I mean, I had them a top 5 team coming into the in preseason. because just that roster alone is absolutely ridiculous. And I thought adding Matt Ryan to that roster was only going to propel them, because I still believe in Matt Ryan. I still believe that he can still be a top 7 quarterback in the league. I mean, but again, starting to see a trend again. 40 times in a game, 27 to 37, 356 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. No matter what, you can't, in my opinion, if you're throwing the ball over 30, 35 times in a game, that typically means that you're behind, and you don't want to be able to see, and you don't want to see that. Um, Kind of heartbreaking out of this game. Treylon Burks goes down with an ankle injury. After
Mm.
his second or third career NFL catch. And I think he's listed as doubtful for this upcoming week. I haven't seen anything as far as like an injury report on him. I just know, I was hearing Sunday after the game that it was an ankle injury. T's and P's to him. Hopefully he gets well. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Um,
According to this, Shane, he has turf toe,
okay. Well, the
and that
reports
crap
that
hurts.
oh yeah, it does. Um, But
Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah. Let me look at
reports I
this.
was
Let me
hearing,
make
there
sure.
was
This one says he's been diagnosed with turf toe, but he will not
okay,
need surgery to repair the injury, so he should be back in a few weeks.
nice, nice. And honestly, let's talk about this game now. Probably, in my opinion, my game of the week, or at least a good choice for it. The Bills and Ravens game. Um,
Oh yeah, the Ravens were up big on that game.
they were. I mean, they were up like at halftime. It was 16, or I'm sorry, it was 20 to 10 at half. Um, and it was pouring down rain in Baltimore. I mean, it was like, I mean, of course they're getting the kind of remnants of Hurricane Ian around that time, and it was a torrential downpour. I mean, people were like washing like um lakes of water off their like face mask and just to where they can see. But I mean, again, Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things. He brings their team back from only scoring 10 points in the first half to 13 in the second half, and pretty much um, coming back and winning that game. Because in my opinion, the first 3 quarters, Ravens had that game. And
Well,
then just
yeah, and the one thing about the Bills though is the Bills held the Ravens scoreless in the second half.
yeah, and that's big, especially with how depleted that secondary is right now. With
Mm-hmm.
losing Micah Hyde for the year. I think they've got a few guys back from last week, but I mean that secondary is still depleted. But they are still able to pull off the win in a comeback fashion. I'm just gonna kind of shout through these next couple of games and just let me know if you want to talk about any of them. I know we'll probably talk about the Chiefs and Buccaneers uh, game a little bit, but you got Chargers Texans. Chargers come out with a win, 34-24. Which honestly I was not expecting the Texans to even be in that game, but I mean they do a third quarter shutout, and only held the Chargers to 7 points in the second half. But I mean, for the Texans being the Texans, they were frankly in that game in the fourth quarter. I mean, yes, it was a 10-point loss, but I mean that was definitely a lot closer than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
Cardinals
yeah.
Panthers.
The Chargers need a little bit of a rebound too. They've kind
For
of had a disappointing couple of weeks.
For sure, for sure, and I think they're kind of in that same boat as the Colts, right? I mean, from a roster standpoint, they're a top 5, top 7 team in the NFL, but
Mm-hmm.
somehow they're finding ways to not win games but lose games.
Yep.
And keeping the Texans in this game in the fourth quarter was something I did not expect at all. And Cardinals and Panthers, Cardinals coming away with a win, 26-16. Patriots and Packers was a pretty good game. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is doing Aaron Rodgers things, leading the Packers to overtime wins. And Mason Crosby kicking game-winning field goals. I mean, that's pretty much been the epitome of the Packers the last 10 years. Um,
Yep.
but they
Mason
pulled off
Crosby.
yeah, he's freaking goated at this point. He's definitely one of the best in the league and best of all time in my opinion. 27-24 win
He's
for the
not as good.
Packers.
He's not as good as Justin Tucker.
Well, I said one of the best. I know he's not better than Justin Tucker, but he's definitely in the conversation for some of the best kickers that's played in the game. Because I mean, you got to think
I could see that.
Goskowski. I mean, you got Goskowski,
Sebastian
Vinatieri.
Sebastian Janik, Sebastian Janikowski.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 of them you can put on that list for the conversation. I think Mason Crosby definitely deserves some talk in that. The Broncos, let me down again. Don't really want to talk too much about that game. Raiders somehow pull that out, 32-23. And then moving on to what I
And the
was not
Raiders,
expecting.
and I'm just going to give you my opinion. If the Raiders had lost that game, Josh McDaniels' job would have probably been on the line for this next Sunday.
Oh, really? You think so?
I
You
think
think his
so.
hot seat's that hot?
Yes. They brought in Devontae Adams to help out with the offense, to spread out that offense a little bit more. And right now you're 1-3. That's not very good.
But he's a first year coach though, right?
I don't care if he's a
I mean,
first year coach,
as
second
far
year
as with
coach.
Raiders, anyways.
Did you see what Wisconsin did at the Paul Chryst? And Paul
I
Chryst hadn't
mean,
had a losing season, but I'm just saying he had a losing season. I think he's kind of like in the situation Bo Pelini was when Bo Pelini was at Nebraska, and yet they fire him. No, this is a cutthroat league. No, they start 0-4, 0-5. He probably would have been gone.
given though, you take Devontae Adams out of that roster, and that roster's still not very good. Adding
They
Devontae
won
Adams,
with that roster. That's what I'm saying. They won without Devontae Adams. Adding in Devontae Adams, they expected to be even better than what they were.
me personally, I'm not too familiar with the roster, as far as like in depth, but just taking a quick glance at it last year, like I didn't think that roster was any good. As far as like popping eyes, as far as like, oh hey, like they've got this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. But you're right. I mean, they were able to win last year, but they. Did they make the playoffs, or were they the team that barely made? I think they barely made it in, didn't they?
I think they barely. Yeah, I think they barely made it in. Yeah, because I think they barely made it in because they had a better record than Pittsburgh did, I believe.
No, because Pittsburgh made the playoffs last year. Pittsburgh
Let
was
me
the last team
see
to make the playoffs
here.
last year. What's up,
Let me.
Tyler? He popped in chat and said tacos. Hey, it is Tuesday. Um,
That is true.
and then while you're looking that up, I'll kind of go on to the next game. In our final game talks for NFL, or second to last here. Chiefs and Buccaneers. Chiefs pull out a win, 41-31. Again, putting up freaking 72 points, which is still these high scoring games. Rick, I don't know about you, but these high scoring games these last 2-3 years in the NFL has been absolutely ridiculous. Because I remember back in the day, if a team scored 30, you're going to win that game. Back in the day.
Yeah, man, it was, and it was. That's just the thing. I mean, it was that, but it's like I said before, the defensive rules have changed so much. I mean, used to whenever I was first taught whenever I was first taught football rules, one of the biggest things I was taught was on defense. The defense could basically do. So you look at this. So look at offense. Offense can't hold. They can't trip. There's a lot of things that they can't do that the defense used to. Defense used to be able to trip. They used to be able to trip people. They still can to an extent, but defense can't hold anymore. I've seen defensive holding be called on a running play. I think that's the biggest joke in the freaking world right there. It bothers me like a lot. And so, yes, the Raiders lost to the Bengals in the first round last year.
Okay. But yeah, I agree. I think when growing up, you could pretty much do anything on defense, including beat the shit out of somebody. I was taught as
Yeah,
growing up playing safety and corner. If they were in that 5 yard mark, you could pick them up and throw them around if you wanted to. So
there was
definitely.
a guy yesterday. There was a guy yesterday I was talking to, Shane, that played football back in the '60s, and he told me that used to, if a tight end was lined up to receive, you could knock that tight end off his feet when he was coming across the middle, and it was no pass interference that was called. But yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that the rules have gotten worse per se, because I understand the injuries, I understand the protocols and things of that nature. But there are some rules that I'm like, it has absolutely has nothing to do with the play. Why would you make that a rule? And so defensive holding on a run is one of them. Why would you even make that a rule? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. How you could call holding on a defensive run at all? It just doesn't.
Yeah, that's definitely probably top of my list as well. Because I mean, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to have like just mittens on and just slap the offensive lineman to try to get around him while he's sitting
Right?
there like bear hugging you. It's kind of
Right?
ridiculous. But I mean, going on this Kansas City Tampa Bay game, I mean again the trend continues. Tampa Bay loses. Tom Brady 39 of 52. Um, I don't see any reason why you have Tom Brady throwing the ball 52 times in a game. But then
Well,
looking
I
at
mean,
it,
they were also down. You look at the box score, Shane. The Chiefs. I think they were up like 28-17 at the half, which is not. I wouldn't say that that's a huge half or anything like that for any means, but 28 points at the half, considering that this Bucks defense has barely even given up that much all year. Yeah, it's pretty. It's a pretty big deal. And we've
I
seen
mean
it
for
before.
sure,
I
but
mean,
I mean go,
we've seen it before.
but sure, I mean for sure, but going to the half 28-17, I mean that's two scores, right? And that's even a touchdown and two field goals. You would expect this Tampa Bay offense to be able to do that, and especially like you said with how this defense has been playing, there should be some kind of pretty much expectation of like, hey, we can still do this without having to put the ball in Tom Brady's hands. Which, given, I mean, he's the greatest of all time when it comes to quarterbacks. Of course, you want the ball in his hands to try and pull a comeback. But at the end of the day, he is one man. I mean, you have the running game. Uh, they only ran the ball 6 times on Sunday. Um, White, I think it's Rashad White, three carries for 6 yards. Leonard Fournette, 3 carries for -3 yards. Um, you're not gonna win games no matter what if that happens. Um, I don't know what's going on with that, but that's by far the worst kind of rushing stats I've seen in a very very long time. Um, and I mean, and on the flip side, I mean, you got Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes things, throwing for 250, 3 touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire running for 90 yards and a touchdown. And then moving on to the Monday night game here, the Rams and 49ers. I was kind of baffled by this game, to be honest. I got home Monday night from work, and I pretty much was able to catch the second half of this game. And I watched about, I think I may have watched the third quarter, and I just turned it off because the 49ers was doing what they wanted to with them. Think you may be muted there, Rick.
I was, thank you. Anyway, yes, I was. Yes, yeah, they were terrible. I don't even think they scored a touchdown. I think they just scored 3 field goals the entire game. But the Rams are struggling right now. Of course, I understand. That you got that post Super Bowl deal. You're gonna have players on the team who are satisfied. You're gonna have some who are not satisfied. They want to continue to win, and that's what's so hard about going back to back years. I understand we're only 4 games in this season, but I don't think anybody said, well, the Rams are going to be 2-2 after 4 games. I think some people, I mean, I said 3-1 after 4 games, and now they're struggling a little bit. But I'll tell you this much, Shane. Having Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback means everything. And yes, I know he made that one mistake last week that cost him a safety. But I mean, you look at this 49er team and them from having a terrible game like they did last week to coming and beating a Super Bowl team from last year. That's gotta give wonders to the 49ers.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, and speaking on your thoughts on, some players being kind of okay with winning a Super Bowl and just kind of gliding through, and others not. I mean, the announcers on that game, sometime in the third quarter, maybe early fourth quarter, I mean, they spent 20 minutes talking about two guys on the Rams defense that were sitting there and bickering, fighting each other. So I mean, I think we're kind of seeing that kind of implode, and that's something that, I mean, they've got to control that, in the locker room. I mean, that's something that those players got to recognize that, hey, like we can't be imploding on each other, here on the sideline, because not only is that going to create tension between me and you, but everybody else on the football team is going to be walking on eggshells, because I mean, who's going to blow up next, and
I
I think
mean,
we've
you look
also
at this much. You look at this much. They got Matthew Stafford last year because they weren't satisfied with Jared Goff, and he led them to a Super Bowl. And now they're having even more problems than what they had before they had Matthew Stafford.
yeah, for sure. And then um I mean, and we're seeing a trend. I mean, I think between college and pro football, I've seen maybe 6 or 7 times that we've had either players of their own team fighting each other, or a player cussing out and pretty much wanting to fight a coach. In the last 2 weeks or so,
I
like.
think that's the dumbest thing. Why would you want to fight a coach? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why? It's so stupid. These players are stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of gone kind of outrageous. But any other thoughts on any other games that we've kind of covered? And Tyler says, starting my new job tomorrow. Catch y'all boys down the road. Hopefully, I can figure stuff out and pop in as a guest at some point in the next couple of weeks. Tyler, hope your new job's gonna go well, brother. And yeah, hopefully, man.
What is Tyler's new job?
I don't know. I have no idea. He
I'm
just
about to
said he
ask
started
him.
a new job. So,
Oh, good.
um,
Well, good for him. I know he was tired of pulling up and then the orders being like more than freaking what they needed. I know that much.
but yeah, any final thoughts on any games or any news regarding NFL? If not, we're gonna probably jump over to college.
Now let's jump over to college.
Cool, cool. Do you want to start with games from this past week? Or do you want to kind of
We
like,
can.
okay, or do you want to kind of talk about the AP Top 25? Maybe talk about some of our
We c- we we
predictions.
we could start with the AP Top 25. That's perfectly fine because I've got a bone to pick with the AP Top 25 again. And so it's
I
just
think this
I
is I mean
oh my
definitely
gosh.
a trend here with AT, Terrible Football Show. I mean, I mean, we talked about it last week. It's atrocious.
So Shane, Cincinnati has been on the outside looking in since they lost to Arkansas. And they have been one of those, if you go back, they're like right there on the edge. I think they were right there on the edge of the most getting votes to the top 25. And I think right now they're at number 24, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I understand LSU has been on somewhat of a streak. Still would not have them in the top 25 after losing to Florida State. Florida State gets one loss, boop, you're out of the top 25. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I know Alex hates Florida State, and I know that he hopes they burn, and that's perfectly fine with me. But I look at it from a logical standpoint. I did not see any reason why Florida State went out of the top 25 and LSU go in. It doesn't make any sense to me. Um, and then, of course, I look up at this last week. One of the biggest things, Shane, with um with the top 25, one of the biggest call outs that we had, I believe Jakub was the one who called it out, was he didn't see how Kansas State was in the top 25, but Kansas was not. Now Kansas is 5-0, and they've jumped Kansas State. And Kansas State has to play the team this weekend, Iowa State, that Kansas beat last week. So this whole entire thing is it's just bonkers. And if you compare it with the coaches poll, because you compare this to the coaches poll is almost very very similar until you get to the set until you get right past Wake Forest at 15. Because in the coaches poll, they have BYU at 16. They have Kansas at 17. The AP has them at 19. They have TCU at 18. They have UCLA at 19. Kansas State, Syracuse, they have Baylor still in the top 25, which I could somewhat see considering their two losses were Oklahoma State and BYU, both ranked teams. Mississippi State gets in there. I agreed with that one. Washington just dropped a little bit after their loss. And then, of course, Arkansas dropped, which I knew they were going to drop out of the top 25. But they have Arkansas in the top 25 still and the coaches poll. So, I mean, yeah, the AP is just, it's mind-boggling. I don't understand it. I don't see how you come to this conclusion, but this is why we do what we do, Shane. We just call it out as we see it.
I mean, yeah, and I think honestly, seeing these I mean, not necessarily coaches poll, because if I'm a coach, I'm not really focusing on that. I'm focusing on this AP poll, and I'm showing my guys this. If I'm a coach in college football right now, I'm showing them this. Like guys, like you think you're hot shit with having a number 10 or number 15 or 20 ranking next to our name, but look at these other teams and look what they've done, and they're ahead of you or they're in there as well. I would honestly use that because I mean we've seen it time and time again where teams, they get in top 15, top 10, and they think they're the best team in the country, and then they go out the next week and get fucking kerschmacked. Um, I mean, you got to keep your team humble some way, and I think that's definitely a tool that I would use because, I mean, like you said, I mean, now don't get me wrong, I know, I mean, they could be a very good team, but I don't really know them I haven't seen them play at all this year. Syracuse, number 22. How are you going to put them above Cincinnati? And is this
Oh, I,
whole
I
AP?
mean, right now I agree. Well, right now I would agree with. I mean, you look at who they've played. You look at some of their quality win. They have some quality wins up there. They probably have just as many quality wins as what Kansas does. Um, Now I will say this much. They beat Purdue, which I thought Purdue should have been a loss for Syracuse. But I mean, you look at the general. Let me look at their schedule real quick, Shane. I'm gonna pop up Syracuse. I know they
And
have a couple of
and
of them that were just blowouts because they were just some bad FCS teams that they ended up playing.
and real
You
quick
look, all right.
while
So they beat.
real quick before we do that, and even then, like if they're gonna go based off of record, right? Like okay, we're gonna have all the undefeated teams, you know, these spots through these spots, and then all the teams that have lost one game, these spots through these spots, and then the teams that lost two games, this spot through this spot, and then you can kind of depict out of there, like, okay, this is clearly the best unbeaten team to the worst unbeaten team, and then so on and so forth, and then you can kind of debate things like that. But my biggest thing with the AP poll is that they're inconsistent with their debate on who goes where, right? Because they're also debating,
Right.
oh well, Syracuse is in there at 22 because they're 5-0 and they've beat this FCS team this bad, this FCS team this bad, has a good conference win with this and so on and so forth. But then you have this team that doesn't have that same quality wins, but they've lost two games. It's to me, it's all about consistency, and that's what we're super not seeing in the AP poll right now.
No, and of course, and I'm looking at their schedule. To me, Purdue is the best team they've beaten so far with Syracuse, and they should have lost that game. Purdue handed them that game. It was just as bad as Arkansas handing Texas A&M that game. It was pretty bad. But let's see on their schedule. They beat Louisville 31-7. Louisville has actually won a couple of games since then. Of course, everybody beats Connecticut. Then of course they beat Virginia, and then of course they played Wagner and beat them 59-0. But they do have a test this week, which is North Carolina State, and I think North Carolina State's going to win that game. Um, I think North Carolina State, regardless of how they played last week, there's to me right now North Carolina State's still the better team, other than Syracuse. But yeah, I get your point. I mean, this is the reason, Shane, why they did away with the BCS rankings and started going with human error to determine who was going to be the top four of the college football playoff, and that's why they have their own. That's why they have their own rankings. That's why we do this. You look at so many things. You look at these teams. They're not just looking at these teams. They're looking at who they've played so far, and then the teams that they have beaten. You look at the teams that they beat. You look at those teams that they've beaten and see if they've had any quality wins, which boost your ranking up even more. So I mean, it just like I said, it's very very inconsistent, and it's a complete joke.
I mean, and this is the way I kind of see it, right? I've always thought the AP poll needs to be somewhat of a script or a template to set up the college football playoff rankings, right? Because if
Right.
not, then you're gonna see, I'm just gonna keep using Syracuse for instance, who may be 6, 7, 8, or they may be 6-2 or 8 or 7-1 or even 8-0 by the time
Hmm.
these college football rankings come up. And then they're sitting at out either between the 17 and 25 range, or even maybe even outside of the top 25 in the AP because they don't have maybe super quality wins. But then if the college football playoffs think they are quality wins, then you could see them jump from 24, 25, or outside the top 25 in the AP to in the top 15 with the college football playoff rankings. And to me, I think that should not be the case. Me personally, I think the AP poll should always set up. Of course, there's going to be with the college football playoff rankings, there's going to be some more debate, some more exact kind of notion of why this team is here and not another team. But in a sense, the AP polls pretty much should give you a template on what this should be going forward. And to me, right now, that it's just not that case. To me, they're focusing on and really not even the number one team because, in my opinion, right now Ohio State's the best team in the country. And I mean by the wins that they have and by how they've won, to me, I would put them number one. Because they've been the most consistent. They had a struggle win with Notre Dame, but since then they've been kind of doing what they should be doing with the teams that they're playing. Yes, it may not be that good of a talent, but they're dominating them like they're supposed to be. When on the
But
flip side,
that's the thing though. They're dominating. They're dominating weak teams. They haven't played a strong team yet this year. Like that's where the thing comes in. And listen, this is no pun on Jakub and his Ohio State football team, but Ohio State has not played a quality opponent yet. Not one.
I
Even Notre
agree.
Dame. Notre Dame is not a quality opponent. And yes, I understand that. I can see where you're coming from. They really haven't had what you would consider a let up or anything like that. But just looking at their schedule, besides Penn State and Michigan, they don't have anybody else in the top 25 at all. It's not even close. And so, I mean, in some ways, I understand what you're saying because in a lot of ways, you look at Alabama. Who else does Alabama play besides Arkansas? Texas. Is Texas in the top 25?
No.
No. Texas got in the top 25 after losing that game. I thought that was the biggest joke in the world. So, I mean, yeah, it just but
I
and
mean,
that's the whole reason why we do have the football playoff. Because like I said, I believe it was last week, maybe been the week before last. You have the commissioner, the head of that committee, the chairman of that committee, defend the picks, defend why they're choosing these top four.
yeah, I mean, yeah, they have a press conference after each rankings come out, pretty much depicting why each team is there at 1 through 25. And the reason why I say that is because look at Georgia. Georgia is still ahead of Ohio State when they very well could have lost to Missouri. And to me, Missouri is not only one of the worst teams in the SEC, but one of the worst teams in the country. And to let
Yeah,
a
they're pretty
team,
bad.
I mean, to let a team like that pretty much, I mean, very well should have beat you, in a sense. Um, and then a week before that, Kent State staying in the game to a sense. And then at that point, okay, then you got to compare what Missouri and Kent State is to the teams that Ohio State beat, right? Are those teams better
Mhm.
than what Missouri and Kent State are? And in my opinion, no. I mean, Missouri, again, Missouri is one of the worst teams in the country, let alone the SEC. Are they better than the teams that um, Ohio State's beaten? That's what it comes down to me. So for me, me personally, I would have Ohio State 1, Alabama 2, Georgia 3. Because to me,
That's respectable.
you can't let a team like Missouri, um, very well be. I mean, they were leading for all the way up until midway through the fourth quarter. I mean, they were winning that game, and for some whatever reason, um, ahead of the game. I mean, it was absolutely mind-boggling that Missouri was doing that to Georgia, even though they came off of a game with Kent State that was pretty much doing the same thing. I know that ended up being like a 16 or 17 point win for Georgia, but I mean, they put up 23 points on them. That's something that should not be happening with a team that completely blew out Oregon that I very well could have had in my college football playoff coming into the year. But they go out and show Oregon who Oregon was and who we know they are to be right now is they're a good team, but not as good as we thought they were. But I mean, they beat them 49-3. I mean, it was ridiculous.
It was a lot. And hey, speaking of rankings, Shane, USA Today released their 1 through 131. Hey, Alex, I just want to let you know, in your mind, Hawaii is the worst team in the nation. But according to USA Today, Hawaii is the second to last team in the nation, the second to worst team in the nation. They have UMass ranked below Hawaii. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Hey, that's big props for that. I mean, because
It really is.
all week last week during the show, he kept saying that they're the worst team in Division I football, but clearly by US Today, they are not. And I'm
They're
pretty
not.
sure, if I'm not mistaken, he even mentioned UMass in his conversation about
Yeah,
being that.
he said they're worse than UMass. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah, hey, you're not worse than UMass, okay, Alex.
Oh, it's
I
still
don't know if
funny.
I don't know if you're listening. I don't know if you're out there right now. I know you're having a good time in Orlando, but hopefully we made your time a little bit better. Hawaii is not the worst college football team in the country. um, but we'll kind of move on because I know we can probably talk about how shitty the AP poll is all freaking night.
Yeah.
Let's get over to some of the games that happened this week. Let's talk about this. What I'm excited for, because y'all made me think that I was freaking crazy with picking UCLA to win this game. Even though I think I actually ended up picking Washington to win that game. But y'all looked at me like I was crazy for saying that UCLA was going to keep this game close. Not only did they keep this game close, but they beat a very good, in my opinion, Washington team.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked myself. I was officiating a game Friday night, and of course, I was looking at the scores on my way home, and I'm like, UCLA's winning this game. And of course, and right now, Shane, like right now, they don't even have fans coming, Shane. It's so bad. Maybe now that they're in the top 25, we actually might see fans coming back to UCLA and actually watching the game. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning on how bad they've looked, but yet they continue to win football games. It makes no sense, but we've seen worse things happen in college football.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think that's why most college football fans, unless you're just absolutely delusional and just pay attention to your one team and your one team only, that's why we
Like
enjoy
Ohio
college
State
football,
fans.
right? Boom,
Like
boom,
Ohio
shots
State
fired.
fans. Oh, yes, shots are going to be fired at Ohio State. What the hell? Where the hell are you going to go? I don't you're fourth down. You're up 39 points, and you're going to do a fake punt. What's the point of doing a fake punt? I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
do.
We're practicing for Michigan. Oh, bull crap. You saved that
You
for a
know,
time you need it. Oh, goodness. I
I
have
did.
lost all respect for like I had low respect for Ryan Day. I've lost all respect for Ryan Day. As far as I'm concerned, Jakub, I hope you're listening, Jakub, or listening to the recording or whatever you decide to do. I hope Ohio State loses every single game until they fire Ryan Day or Ryan Day leaves 1-2. And I don't care where Ryan Day goes. I hope he loses every single game for the rest of his coaching career.
All right, so there's another
There's
Ricky
just
mini rant,
there's just
but
some things you don't do. And I understand
I
it's
mean,
college
I
football.
agree. I mean,
To
it's
don't,
sports. It comes down to sportsmanship, right? I mean, I don't
You're
even know who they were
it's
playing, but
Rutgers. What do you have? It's Rutgers, Shane. What do you have to prove against Rutgers?
oh, for sure.
It's Rutgers. They're your Vanderbilt of the Big Ten. They're that horrible, and you're gonna tell me that you got to run a fake punt up 49-10? It's like no, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, in my opinion, I mean that's one of the reasons. That's one of the very, very many reasons why I don't like Ohio State, and I haven't liked them for a very, very long
Because
time.
they beat up on teams that they're supposed to beat up, but when someone punches them in the mouth, and Jakub, it's coming. It's coming, my friend. Because I had picked Ohio State to go undefeated all year and possibly win a national championship, and that still could possibly happen. Because I try not to put my feelings into my picks or anything like that. But you know,
Oh, we have
is
an
this Alex?
We
Alex,
have an Alex.
I am on an Ohio State rant right now, sir, because they did a fake punt on a fourth down when they're up 49-10, and I'm on a rant about Ohio State right now, man. Other than that, how's vacation going, man?
Man, it is going phenomenal. I know you can't really see me; it's dark, but you can't see behind me right now
I
at
can see
FDOT.
you. Are you Oh yes, it's the golf ball, man. That's the best
Yeah.
right there.
It's the Food and Wine Festival, so just been eating food literally all day today, and it's been great. Having a great time, enjoying the show. I've been listening when I have service because I've been going in and out of stuff right now. So I've been listening to the show when I actually have service. Wanted to pop
There you
in,
go.
say hi. Great show so far. Really enjoyed the opening segment involving the scheduling in Tua because that is a dog shit situation. It is pathetic. So I wanted to, applaud you guys for that one. Also, shout out to Jacob, unable to make it. T's and P's to him, of course. Hopefully
No.
be back here in the near
He needs
future.
to
But
be
yeah, good show for you boys.
Alex,
here for this rant that I'm on, so he can defend
Zach,
his
go
Ohio
away.
State
Go away,
Buckeyes
Zach.
from
you're
being
on
a
vacation,
complete
Alex.
joke.
Fuck off.
Look, all right, listen, hold on. All right, I literally popped in here because I am busy. Okay, I've got just a couple minutes for you, and I wrote down some points. My video might be paused now because I had to close out a Discord, right? But I wrote down some points for you boys. I'm gonna name off these points. You guys can take it as you want it, and then I'm gonna dip out because I got shit to do. All right, so I'm gonna start with NFL. Okay, point one, the Bears stink. Point two, the Dolphins organization is a dumpster fire with how they handled the Tua situation. Point three, Jags and Lions dropped the ball, but they are still not the same old Jags and Lions. Number four, the Bucks are dead. Tom came out of retirement from his supermodel wife, who's now going to divorce him just to get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. Trash Bisky is still Trash Bisky. Shane, I'll give you your $20 here in the near future. This year's Chargers is last year's Ravens. Hopping over to college, let's go Rebels for beating that Miracle Whip coffee drinking freak. I am very shocked by some of the upsets that we had this week, such as like Oklahoma, Washington, Minnesota. I'm not shocked by Texas A&M though. My question that I had last week involving Georgia still remains now. Clemson shocked me, but I still believe they're overrated. Hey, shout out to the fact that both of my favorite teams did not lose this week. Go Bows, go Canes. They didn't play, that's why they didn't lose. And lastly, to end off my points, and I will see you guys later. Roll Tide. Have a good one, guys.
Oh,
Enjoy the
fuck
show.
off. Oh, yeah, he's got to go. Get him out of here. Get him out of Get him out of
Oh,
here. Get him out of here.
that hurts. That hurts a little bit, Alex. Oh, that hurts just a little bit.
Okay.
We're
All right. Actually, this is what we're going to do, Rick. We're going
all
to
right.
send a nice stern letter to US Today and advocate for Hawaii to be the worst team in the country. It's got to happen now.
Yep,
They've got to be worse than
it's
UMass.
gonna happen. Yep, it's got to
Yep.
happen. Yep,
Yep.
we will make a case for it, sir.
Yep.
We
A
will
very
make a case for it.
stern worded letter is going to be sent to US Today's newspaper.
If UConn could
And
have 2 wins this week, or UConn could have 2 wins this week, that would that'd give them 2 wins. So they're definitely worse than UConn already as it is. So yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we could definitely do that. I will vouch for that.
good. All right. So we'll link up after the show and get those letters written out and sent out before before next week's voting. But moving on to the next game that I've got here, Kentucky and Ole Miss. Very surprising for me personally. I do also want to mention the god awful uniforms that or helmets that Ole Miss was wearing. It looked like a third grade child took their father's spray can to their helmets and just fucked it up. But hey, I mean let's give it to Lane Kiffin, 5-0, top 15 team in the country now, getting a win from Kentucky, which I was very high on myself, who I had them, top 3 in the East, and pulling out a win. Wasn't the
They
prettiest
still
win,
could get
but
top 3. They still could get top 3 in the East.
oh, for sure. Um, but in a sense, I don't want that to happen now because that'll make Ole Miss look better. So that can't happen. Yeah, but
Well, I mean, yeah, Kentucky handled them that game though. The Kentucky had several chances to win that game. It was bad.
yeah, I mean it was just surprising. I checked in on the game here and there because I was at work. And I mean I looked down and not only is Ole Miss in the game, but they were leading. I think I checked in the fourth quarter, so I mean the game was 22-19, which no team scored in the fourth quarter. And I was like, do not tell me Ole Miss is going to win this game. Kentucky's got to find a way, but unfortunately they did not. But yeah, I hate to see Ole Miss win. There may be a team that I hate. There's probably 2 teams that I hate more than Ohio State. and that's probably Ole Miss and Texas A&M. But that's just being, you know, an Arkansas fan.
Yeah, it is
Um,
what it is, Shane. It is what it
I
is.
know, I know. Um, I don't really have much to say about the Purdue Minnesota game. I didn't get a chance to catch it. I didn't see any highlights on it or anything like that.
That
Um,
was that was a shock to me. I don't see how they lost that game.
who won it? Because I don't see it here on my games that I've wrote down. Oh, I see it now. Purdue won it
Yeah,
2010.
yeah.
Which I mean, surprising because I mean, honestly, I was high on Purdue coming into the year. Maybe not as high as Alex was, but Minnesota has been playing very good football coming up to this point. I'm kind of sad I didn't get to catch any of the game or any highlights or anything, but for them to win, um, for Purdue to get that win is huge for them, and to me very disappointing for Minnesota because is this a trophy game? Do you know if this is a
I
trophy
think
game?
so. I can't remember which trophy it is, but yeah, I believe it is a trophy game. And so I was just shocked because Purdue, they find ways to lose games. They don't find ways to win games. I mean that's just the bottom line. And of course Minnesota's just like dominant the past few weeks, but I mean they're a conference team. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. The next game on our list here is Alabama and Arkansas. Me personally, I'm gonna skip over this, talk about it at the end because I know me and you will have quite a bit to say about it. That or nothing at all. So I'm gonna move on to another surprise for me of the weekend, the Oklahoma State Baylor game. Again, I was very high on Baylor. I had them on my preseason college football top four. But they just
I did too.
continue to Yep, and it continued to let me down. And Oklahoma continues to surprise me. I knew they were a good team. I just thought they were going to kind of take a step back from last year. But it seems like they're not only taking a step forward, but they've taken a leap forward and continuing to get better each and every week, finding ways to win. They win this 36-25, and I mean, yeah, I mean, to me, I didn't really get to catch a lot of this game. I maybe caught a play here and there, but I mean, yeah, Oklahoma State finds a way to win it.
I think the biggest thing that shocked me over the weekend, Brad, was how bad TCU whipped up on Oklahoma. I expected Oklahoma to have a rebound game like they usually do when they lose a game, but this wasn't the case. They just put a whooping on Oklahoma. Now TCU has to play Kansas this coming weekend.
Yeah, for sure. TCU is probably my biggest surprise out of the Big 12.
Hmm.
Um, because I mean, I knew they were good, but I didn't think they were the type to put 55 on a Brent Venables defense in Oklahoma. Now, given
No,
that Brent Venables doesn't have all of his guys that he had in Clemson and yada yada, but at the oh, excuse me, excuse me. At the end of the day, Brent Venables is the best, if not a top defensive coordinator in the country before he took this Oklahoma job. And I would have not expect at all that a team would be able to put 30, let alone almost 60 on them.
yeah, it was
And
quite a bit.
I was expecting, maybe Oklahoma not be as good as they were last year or a year before that. I was definitely expecting a year off from the Sooners this year, but I didn't expect them to be 3-2 heading into week 6. And by what I saw, I didn't see them in the top 25. But then again, I
They're not.
didn't really, yeah. So didn't expect that at all. But hey, I mean that's a 31-point win for TCU over a top 25 Oklahoma team at the time. Huge win for them.
Yeah, and of course, I think this weekend, Shane, is the first time that both teams, where one of them has not been ranked in a very long time. I'd have to look up see exactly when that was. Usually, one, if not both, are ranked when they play each other.
Yeah. I mean, in this game coming up next week, or this week with TCU and Kansas, that's going to be a very interesting game as well. I mean, Kansas, man, uh, I've always been kind of an outside fan of Kansas just because
Hmm.
I've never had no except for in basketball. I hate them in basketball. But as far as football wise, I've always kind of not necessarily rooted for them or against them. They've just kind of been like, oh look, Kansas is winning the game, cool.
Well, you don't expect them to do well in football because they're a basketball school. It's the same with Kentucky. But yet we're on the outside looking in. It's like, you know what? We're seeing this basketball school. They're having a good football season. And it's always great when something like that happens. Something great is going to come out of this for Kansas this year. But Kansas is last. Let's see, they're 5-0 right now. Their last 7 games are going to be tough. They're going to be extremely tough to win out.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, with them being 5-0, they've only got to win, 2 of the last 7 to be bowl eligible. And I mean,
No,
when
they
was
have to win
that?
one more. They have to win one more. They
Oh,
have to
well,
win
yeah, one
6.
more. Well, yeah, I mean, technically you have to win 6, but me personally, I would like to get in that 7
I
mark.
like to see that. I like to see them get 7 or 8. I don't. I
Yeah,
looking at their schedule, it's not. I'm not going to say it's not doable. They got Texas Tech on their schedule. I think they have Baylor on the schedule. I know Oklahoma's on the schedule, and I think I can't remember who else is on their schedule. I have to look it up.
yeah. I mean, frankly, out of those 3 games, there's not a game there that I'm like, okay, they can lose. They're going to lose that game. The only one that honestly would put up a fight there is Oklahoma, because Oklahoma has had their number the last, 20 years. Even in the most recent past, Oklahoma's had some big games against Kansas. Um, so that's going to be an interesting game. But I think what's going to make or break what's really going to make or break their season this year, as far as going to that, really jumping over the mid level and being a top tier team this year, is this game this week against TCU. Coming in 2 undefeated teams, TCU's looked good, Kansas looked good. I'm glad it's college football or game day this week, because it's going to be a very interesting game.
When's the last time game day went to Kansas for a
I
football
don't think
game?
they I don't think
That's
they've ever
they
been there.
probably. You're probably right. They probably haven't been there, but it's still going to be good. I'm happy. I'm happy for Kansas. Unlike Ohio State.
Um, so going over these next couple of games, you have anything to say about Western Penn State or Wake Forest and fuck Florida State?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right. Um, so next game on the list after that is Texas A&M Mississippi State. I think, me personally, I saw this coming. Not that I just hate Texas A&M, but I knew how good Mississippi State's offense can be, if they're clicking on
Hmm.
all cylinders, and we clearly saw that with an 18-point win. Um,
I read an article today that his Jimbo Fisher's buyout is $90 million. It is $90 million.
it is
But
okay.
I also the same article I read, there are boosters who have stated they will not hesitate to fire him because I'm trying to tell y'all they will not hesitate to fire him because of a $90 million bot. It's Texas football.
For
They're
sure.
not scared. They're not scared.
I mean, I mean, we covered this last week. Texas A&M is not only the richest team program in the SEC, but they're probably a top, um wealthiest team program in the country.
I think
They
they
will
are the
not.
wealthiest team program in the country.
Yeah, and they're not scared to throw around that oil money at all.
No, no, and of
So
course, of course, one. And here's something else, Shane. This weekend they play Bama. Let's say they lose to Bama. That's 3 losses already for the year. They were a top 5 team whenever the season started, and now you're seeing how low that it is going to sink. They do not care about that number 1 recruiting class. What do you do with that recruiting class is what the result is going to be, is whether you win or whether you lose. And right now he's losing. So you look at that, 3 losses, the minimum you can win is 9 games, and they still have a tough SEC schedule ahead of them. And I'm not saying they can't get to that 9 wins, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't see more than 7,
I
and
mean, they,
that's not going to cut it.
now don't I could be wrong, but if in order to win 9 games, they would have to win. They would have to win out, correct?
After Bama, yes, I don't see that happening.
Yeah. I don't either. Especially with the teams like, I think they still have another East team that they have to play. I think that's Tennessee, maybe. I'm not totally sure. I haven't really looked at the schedule, but yeah, it'd be very difficult to reach that mark. And again, I said it. I try to say it every week. They pay a lot of money to go, 7-5 and or 8-4, pretty much, because that's just kind of been a trend, especially after Johnny Manziel and Kellen Mond has left. It's kind of been their trend to kind of be in that range, and we're continuing to see it. But moving on, Georgia and Missouri, probably the biggest surprise of me for the college football weekend, other than
Yeah.
the actual upsets, because Missouri going into the fourth quarter here was up 19-12. Yeah,
So
19-12.
something like that. Yeah.
So I mean, and they were leading. I mean, at one point they were up 16-6, or 16-0, then 16-6. After Georgia scored, or two. Well, they had two field goals back to back. But anyways, I mean, at one point, I mean, they had this game in hand the entire game until they let Georgia score 14 points in the fourth quarter, which eventually gave them the win 26-22. But like I said, to me this hurts Georgia a lot. For me, a lot more than what the Kent State game did last week. Um, Even though Kent State is probably a better team than Missouri, kind of arguably there, but at the end of the day, Georgia did have an 18-point win or whatever it was against Kent State. But in my opinion, they honestly probably should have lost this game if Missouri's defense just wasn't fucking worn out. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much
They were worn out.
um. But yeah, what you got
So
any other thoughts on
I
this?
I didn't have Missouri winning a single conference game this year. I thought Missouri was that terrible, and that to me they still are. And so, and of course, going back on Texas A&M for a second before we move on. So I'm going to call this right now. If Texas A&M loses to Alabama, they go to South Carolina next week. If by somehow, some way, South Carolina pulls off that win, wait, that's in 2 weeks. I'm sorry, the 22nd. I'm sorry. October 22nd, write down. Actually, write down October 23rd. Somebody write it down. Sure. Loses at Alabama, and he also loses at South Carolina. They will fire Jimbo Fisher by October 23rd. It's going to happen. If you look at the rest of their schedule, at South Carolina, they have at home against Ole Miss and Florida. They're not better than Ole Miss and Florida right now. At Auburn, they'll beat Auburn. Oh, they have Massachusetts on the schedule. They have the worst team in the country on the schedule here. And then they round it off with LSU. So just by looking at it, I'm looking at 2, possibly 3 more losses after this weekend, which, if by my estimation, that's 7-5 or 6-6. So, I mean, it just, like I said, write it down. If they find a way to lose to South Carolina, October 23rd, Jimbo Fisher will be out of a job. He will be out of Texas A&M, and they will gladly pay him that $90 million.
I mean, yeah, I mean that to me that would still be a big surprise. Just because I think the only reason why they wouldn't get rid of him this year is because of that number one recruiting class last year. They'll give him an extra year or an extra offseason to get those guys
Not happening.
get ready,
It's
but that would be that would be my only pitch as if I'm Jimbo Fisher to keep my job, right?
so
Give me
you
another
look at the
offseason to get these guys
expectations,
ready.
Shane. Shane, let's just be real. This is Arkansas's expectations right here. Usually, when it comes to a football program, Texas A&M breaks the ceiling. They expect to compete with Bama. Of course, Auburn hasn't been good as of late, but Auburn was one of the top tier teams in the SEC at one point. But Alabama, Auburn, LSU, they expect to be in those top tier programs every single year, and they expect to compete. Us, we're okay if we have a 6-6, 7-5 season and have one of those seasons like we did last year every now and then. We're okay with that. Texas A&M doesn't accept that. That's why they got rid of Kevin Sumlin. And if you look at Kevin Sumlin's record versus Jimbo Fisher's record, Kevin Sumlin has 1 or 2 more wins right now versus what Jimbo Fisher had, and Jimbo Fisher still has a job. So, no, they're not going to put up with it, Shane. He is gone. If he does not turn this team around, he is gone. I promise you it's going to happen. So, people, write it down. Losing to Alabama this weekend, and on October 23rd, if he loses to South Carolina, which is that Saturday on the 22nd, he will be out of Texas A&M on October 23rd, regardless of that recruiting class.
I mean, I mean, there would be nothing that would make me happier than to see him out the door, right? Because everything that I've heard from Texas A&M fans is that Jimbo Fisher is the greatest thing ever. They're going to bring him. They're going to bring Texas A&M to national, yada yada yada, and do all these great things. And I'm just like, hey, slow your roll. In my opinion, Jimbo's not that good of a coach. He got lucky one year with Florida State with just having the right quarterback and the right system at the right time,
Yep.
um, and was able to win a national championship. Um, Now, given yes, it's very difficult to win a national championship no matter what. But in my opinion, it's kind of like a Gene Chizik thing, right? Speaking of Auburn, he goes wins a national championship, goes 6-6 the next 2 years, he's out the door. It's just kind of a luck of the god. Well, I can't even say that
And if
thing, but
and if and if I'm not mistaken, Shane, I think that second year, I think they fired him before the season was even up.
yeah, that you did. Because I think they started off like 2-4 or something like that, two and
Something
five
like that.
maybe. And then he was out the door, and then the interim coach that came in ended up, bringing them together and get to 6 wins, maybe, or they might have been even 5-7. Um, but yeah, I mean, at sometimes you just get everything to go your way, and it does happen that you have a mixture of things, that you have the right schedule, you have the right players, and you have a good quarterback. At the time in Jameis Winston in Florida State, just like Gene Chizik did with Cam Newton. You know, college wise now, of course their pro careers are their pro careers, but I mean it's arguably that Jameis Winston at Florida State, Cam Newton with Gene Chizik in Auburn, those are once in a generational type players that can make up that difference, especially Cam Newton, because I mean who else saw a 6'6", 240-pound guy run like he did when he was with Auburn? I mean,
Nobody.
it's just, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, those things just kind of fell in those guys' laps, and they were able to win a national championship. So don't get me wrong, it would make me more than happy to see Jimbo Fisher out the door and Texas A&M eating their words, and also writing a big fat check to him. But I think if Jimbo Fisher likes to be at Texas A&M and wants a chance to stay there and have a chance to be what people want him to be, that would be my number one pitch to the boosters, being like, hey, like let me get another offseason with his number one recruiting class. And if I go, yada yada next year, then you can do what you want to do. But I believe in these guys, because don't get me wrong, they're very talented. That team is very talented. I mean, and you got to be with the number one recruiting class. I mean, they're starting 4 or 3 off defensive linemen that are all 5 stars, freshmen on the defensive line. I mean, they're outrageously talented. But at the end of the day, it does come back to Jimbo Fisher, because they've got to get those guys ready to
It
play.
would be one thing, Shane, if he was started the season unranked. He started the season ranked number 4 in the nation, which I thought was a joke to begin with. But he started the season ranked number 4 in the nation. The writers, the reporters, everyone, the sports analysts, the sports world had this huge expectation for Texas A&M, and I did not. I didn't fall. I don't fall for that Texas A&M crap. I knew they were going to suck. Like I knew from the very get-go they were going to suck. Number one recruiting class or not, they were not going to be very good. And so yeah, I just like I said, I wouldn't. To me, if I'm a booster, that pitch isn't going to work. There's no way you can justify having the season that he's about to have when you had all these people that had high expectations for you and expected you to win. And we're talking about a year, because here's something else we got to remember, Shane. Here in the next season or two, you've got 2 new SEC teams coming in, Oklahoma and Texas, which means your recruiting is going to be even tougher than what it used to be because of those 2 teams coming in.
Yeah, and that's one thing I mean, I kind of known about, but I mean, you got to think that's going to help. And in my opinion, out of Texas and Oklahoma, Texas definitely should benefit the most from that move. Because everybody wants to go to Texas. Texas is, I mean, it's the University of Texas. I mean, that's the school that most people growing up in Texas want to go to. But unfortunately, they just haven't been very good, and they've been in the Big 12. Being in the SEC itself will draw players to want to play for you. Um, but no, I mean, I like I said, I mean, I'm right there with you when that previous season rankings came out. I mean, I've been saying it all year. they pay a lot of money to be a mediocre university, and that's what it's come down to.
Exactly.
I'm gonna kind of skip over these next two games because we're at the almost a 2 hour mark here.
Yeah, we're about there. Let's go. Let's get the game prediction, Shane.
Yep. So I mean, yeah, NC State, Clemson. Clemson pulled out that win, I believe, and Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh. Um, I'm actually happy with not talking about the Alabama Arkansas game because we'll be here for another 2 hours. So yeah, let's
Georgia
go
Tech
ahead.
win that game. Oh my gosh.
Um,
Oh,
but yeah, let's go ahead and jump into these predictions here.
let's do it. Let's do it.
And then we'll round out the show. Me personally, like I said, I don't see, the list of the order that we usually go in. So I'm just gonna do like you said and go down the run your pool. So starting off Nebraska and Rutgers.
Give me
It's
Nebraska. Nebraska had a big win last week against Indiana, and of course Rutgers is not very good. I think Ohio State proved that. Would not surprise me if Rutgers does pull this off because I think they need a little bit of a boost. But Nebraska seems to be playing much better without Scott Frost, their head coach.
Yeah, I agree. To me, this was one of my pitches for terrible game of the week. In my opinion, because to me these are two of the worst teams in Division One football right now, especially with two teams that have a lot of history. But I'm with you. I'm going to go Nebraska here. Next up we got College Game Day, TCU at number 19 Kansas.
ECU looked very, very good last week. And let me pull this up here. They like I said, they have looked very, very good. But so has, but of course, so has Kansas. If I'm not mistaken, I think TCU's schedule has been a little bit tougher than what Kansas is. This one is going to be a toss up for me. I think right now I think TCU is a 7 point. Yes, they are a 7 point favorite right now, and very well should be. Let's see here. Yes, they've beaten SMU. They beat Tarleton, which isn't a big deal. And then of course Colorado. Colorado is actually ranked. They're not ranked much. They're not ranked much lower than what Hawaii is right now in that USA Today deal. I want to roll with Kansas, and I'm going to continue to roll with Kansas just because I like what I'm seeing from Kansas. Um, and so, like I said, I'm really going to pull for Kansas to win this one. Give me the Jayhawks.
I'm going to be rooting for Kansas to win this game as well, but I think with this kind of being Kansas's first really test on knowing how TCU has played this far, I think this is I don't think they're quite there yet. Don't get me wrong, I think Kansas is a very good team right now. I'm gonna be cheering for them in this game, but I'm gonna pick TCU to win it because I need to get back up in those leaderboards.
Here you go.
So we've got Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan here. I'm gonna start this one off. I'm not a I'm not a huge fan of Eastern Michigan. I like Western Michigan. I believe that they're Mustangs if I'm not mistaken. Um, I, I I don't know much about either team, but I'm gonna go Western Michigan. Just solely based on that they're brown and yellow like Wyoming, and I'm doing it for Tyler. So how about that?
Good. Gotta do it. Gotta do it for Tyler. I don't know much about these teams either. Of course, Western Michigan they went undefeated a couple years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. I think is when they went undefeated. They've been a little bit downhill. Goodness gracious, I cannot catch my breath. Anyway, um, so let's see here. Western Michigan, I believe they're a 5 point favorite in this football game. But I am going to roll with Eastern Michigan in this football game. I think Eastern Michigan's going to pull this out.
All right. Another game that I don't really know too much about. I know I was high on Purdue coming into the year. They've let me down. And then Maryland's kind of they haven't played great, but they played better than I thought they would be this year. I'm gonna go with Terps at home.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. And I know Purdue had a pretty big win last week, but the Terps, we've seen a much improvement this year. Purdue just seems to give away games that they're really supposed to win. And obviously, I thought Minnesota was a game they shouldn't have won. But at the same time, give props for props is due. But yeah, I've got the Terps at home.
All right, next game to me, battle of two top 25 teams. We got number 8 Tennessee going into Death Valley to number 25 LSU. Who you got?
Oh, let's see here. So I have rode with Tennessee for quite a bit of the way. Tennessee is a very good football team, but LSU has seemed to just kind of really sneak up in there. If this was a night game in November, I'm rolling with LSU, but it's not a night game in November. It's a day game in October. Give me Tennessee.
And honestly, I think right now, even with how this LSU team has played, I think they're getting better week by week. But at the end of the day, I think Tennessee's offense may be a top 5 offense in the country. Um, Hendon Hooker has got that team rolling right now. He's an early Heisman candidate. And they've been putting up these points without their top receiver. Play, I mean, he's been injured the last like 2 weeks. So I think he played some last week, but I think he's fully going to be 100% in this game. I think Rocky Top rolls in this game. I'm going with Tennessee. Next game we got the Red River rivalry and 2 future SEC teams. We got Texas and Oklahoma.
So Shane, I was just reading up something. 'Cause it was bothering me. How long it's been since neither team has been ranked, and it was really bothering me. Shane, you got to go back to 1998. 1998. I was 10 years old. So, and that I'm 34 now. So do the math. So anyway, so this is one of those games, Shane, that you throw the record books out. It doesn't matter who's ranked, who's unranked. It's one of those deals where you're just like, you know what? Let's roll with the punches. I want to pick Oklahoma to win this game, Shane. I really do. For the simple fact is, I do not see them losing a third straight game. Texas, on the other hand, of course, they had that loss to Alabama. And then, of course, they had the loss, I believe it was to Texas Tech, which was on the road. Is that correct, Shane? That
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that was they
Yeah,
were on the
it
road
was in
when they lost that
yeah,
game.
it was in Lubbock, yeah.
So of course, both teams are 3-2. Oklahoma coming off 2 losses in a row. I personally don't see Oklahoma losing a third straight. I'll go Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm not really kept up with Oklahoma's team as I usually do. Um, I'm not sure who their quarterback is or anything like that. Me personally, I'm a big fan of good quarterback play. I like what Quinn Ayers has done this year. I would like to pick Texas, but I'm gonna have to agree with you. I don't see Oklahoma losing 3 straight. Because I don't remember a time when the last time Oklahoma's lost 3 straight games. I'm gonna go with the Sooners at home. Next up, we got our team, the Arkansas Razorbacks, traveling to Stark Vegas to go against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I'm not gonna lie. I'm severely scared about this game. I'm more scared about this game than I was with the Alabama game or the Texas A&M game, um, because of what that offense can do. Um, and frankly, on how they do and how they do put up their points and their yards. They do it through the air. Will Rogers has been there for like 3 or 4 years, if not longer. To me, he's a good quarterback. He can get the ball in spots where he needs them to be. You know, I picked Arkansas over Alabama last year for an emotional pick, but I can't do it this year. I mean, this week. Even though that there's this guy on Twitter, they host a podcast show, and he's a Mississippi State fan, and he's so obnoxious. He's so annoying, with downing Arkansas and doing this and this and that. I'm going to pick Mississippi State. The last 2 weeks, I've picked Arkansas to win, and they've lost. Hopefully, this is some reverse psychology. I'm picking the Bulldogs to win at home. You're muted again, bud.
I meant to unmute myself. I'm sorry.
There you go.
One thing that's a little bit different with this Mississippi State team, of course, I think their one loss was to LSU, which I thought was a joke. I thought Mississippi State should have pulled that off, but it happens. It's college football. One of the things Mississippi State was not able to do last year that they've been able to do this year is have a pretty decent run defense. They only allow 118 rushing yards per game, and considering that their passing yards are way up. Considering their passing yardages per game is way up there, Arkansas's defense is depleted in the secondary. We keep seeing the same problems that we've seen from week 1 on, and like I said, this was one of the 2 losses that I predicted for Arkansas. Unfortunately, this is going to be loss number 3. I've got Mississippi State as well.
Yeah, I agree. I hate to see Arkansas lose 3 in a row for the second year in a row under Sam Pittman. But at the end of the day, our secondary is depleted. Not only that, but we're statistically the worst secondary in the country. And not only that, we got gashed last week. I was going to talk about this if we actually talked about the game last week. We got gashed for 3 70-yard runs last week against Alabama. One from their running back, one from their quarterback, 2 from their running back. And right now we can't seem to stop the big play. And right now Mississippi State's offense has got big play written all over them. I think I don't know what the points are right now, but Mississippi State I do have winning again, and unfortunately I hate to do it, but moving on though, we got Buffalo we got Buffalo traveling to Bowling Green.
The last time I picked Buffalo, I was a fool. Bowling Green wins this game.
Yeah, I can't say much about this game. I don't know much about them except for that both of these teams, to my knowledge, have always been kind of not very good. But I'm going to roll with you. I'm going to say the home team gets an advantage. I'm going to roll with Bowling Green. And we got now Georgia Southern traveling to Georgia State.
So, Georgia State is a running team. Well, they're actually quite balanced. Actually, to be honest with you, both teams give up quite a bit of rushing yards per game. They're about the same with passing yard. This game is really going to be neck and neck. However, Georgia Southern scores more points. I'm going Georgia Southern.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Georgia Southern as well. I don't know much about it, but I know Georgia State made me look like an idiot that first week against Arkansas State. So I won't talk about that. But anyways, I'm gonna go Georgia Southern. Now coming up is probably one of the matchups I'm looking forward to seeing most this week. We got number 11 Utah traveling to Los Angeles and going against the Bruins of UCLA.
Yeah, of course. Last week I didn't think UCLA had a chance to win last week, considering the fact Utah has played some very good football since losing to Florida. They've played some very good football. I really want to roll the dice here. I really do. I want to roll the dice to say, you know what, UCLA is going to pull this off. But I was a fool last week. But I don't think they're gonna fool me twice. I got Utah.
All right. I'm gonna go with the Bruins. I've always been a Chip Kelly fan. I like to see him back in the top 25, getting that team going. I think they continue it this week and get a big win over Utah, a team that's upset my Ducks 2 of the last 3 years. I think it's time for another team to step into that Pac-12 and try to make that conference a little bit better. So hopefully UCLA can do it, and I'm picking them to win at home. I got Middle Tennessee State at UAB.
Middle Tennessee State had a big setback after that huge win that they had against Miami. Alabama Birmingham, of course, ever since they've come back from shutting down their football program, they continue to win. They're at home. I think it's going to be a close matchup. Give me UAB.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's gonna be a close win. Don't know too much about either team except for Middle Tennessee State getting that, of course, big win over Miami. But I am gonna go UAB at home. Now, next game, I'm not even gonna pretend that I know anything about either one of these teams. I'm gonna go Delaware and William and Mary. So I'm gonna go with William and Mary. To my knowledge, they had a big win not too long ago in the FCS level. I'm gonna go William and Mary at home.
Let's see here. William and Mary, I thought they had beaten a pretty big Division One team, but I was thinking of someone else. Yeah, I was thinking of someone else. I'm going to go with Delaware. Delaware is ranked right now. I think they're ranked, they're ranked 5th in the FCS. I think William and Mary is 17th. Delaware State's undefeated.
Okay. Next game up. This is probably gonna hurt Alex Light's feelings, but you know what? Fuck him because he said Roll Tide. I don't ever want to hear that come out of his mouth again. So I'm gonna go North Carolina winning this game at going to Miami.
Miami's defense, with the exception of playing against Middle Tennessee State, has actually been quite okay. I don't think North Carolina is the better team. They're the most consistent team. I've got North Carolina winning as well.
Yeah, and I was kind of high on North Carolina as far as like I was letting you and Alex kind of be on the watch out for North Carolina. I think they're better than what people give them credit for. That's another reason why I went with them as well. Now this game is going to hurt me to pick this team. We've got Ole Miss traveling to Vanderbilt to take on the Commodores. Unfortunately, it's Vanderbilt. I'm gonna have to pick Ole Miss winning this game.
I really, really, really want to roll the dice and pick Vanderbilt to win this game. I am huge on the Commodores this year. I really am. But I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it in this game. I've got Ole Miss as well.
Look, I will go out if Vanderbilt wins this game. I will be so happy. I will go out and buy a Vanderbilt merchandise somehow, and I will wear it with my cam on next week if that happens because I would absolutely love that. But unfortunately, for my pick's sake, I can't go with it. We got Western Kentucky traveling to San Antonio to take on the Roadrunners of UTSA.
Yeah, UTSA has they've kind of have a disappointing start. I think a lot of teams, I think Alex especially, expected them to be a lot better than what they are. Western Kentucky, of course, they had that huge win. I would say a huge win. It really wasn't that huge of a win, but they had that they scored. I think it was 70 something points against Florida International, which was not very good. UTSA, I think UTSA being at home is going to help them out a lot. I think they humble Western Kentucky. I think they pull off the win.
I would love to say that. I would love to pick San Antonio, your UTSA in this game. But again, they continue to let me down, and I can't pick somebody that continues to let me down, and especially on my picks when I'm trying to win this pool, man. I'm trying to get up there.
I understand. I understand.
And I've been a big fan of Western Kentucky. Even before Bobby Petrino got there, got them to relevance or even more relevancy, and then they come into Arkansas, beat us with Ty Story, which was horrible to watch. But so I'm gonna go with Western Kentucky winning that game. You got now UConn traveling to Florida International. Who you got there?
Yeah, so this is our terrible game of the week. The last time that Connecticut was part of the terrible game of the week, I think they played Central Connecticut, and they ended up winning, and I did pick them to win. Florida International, they lost 73-0 to Western Kentucky 2 weeks ago, and they barely beat out New Mexico. Well, they beat New Mexico State 21-7. You look at UConn's schedule so far this season. Of course, they did get the winning over Central Connecticut, and I'm wanting to say Massachusetts was their other win. Let me look at this. No, they beat Fresno. Give me Connecticut.
Yeah, I'm gonna go UConn here. I think UConn kind of grew on me as a somewhat of an outsider looking in fan. When they were in the top 20, 2-3 years back or whenever that was. When they had some outstanding player, I forgot what his name was, but I'm gonna go with the Huskies here. Next on the board, we got Kansas State, which is honestly probably another surprise team for me in the Big 12. Traveling to Iowa State.
So Iowa State has not, their offense has really been kind of depleted the past couple of weeks. Of course, last week they did lose to Kansas last week, so that's definitely going to be something of a mark. This week Kansas State should win this game. I don't think that they're going to have that much issue with Iowa State. It could be a close game, but Kansas State's a little bit more athletic. I'll take Kansas State.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian Martinez and his grandkids, they're playing outstanding football right now over there in Kansas State. I can see this a close game, but then again, on the flip side, if Iowa State can't get their offense going, I can see this a 17-point win for Kansas State. It really depends on if the Iowa State offense can kind of get it going, but I am going to go with Wildcats, um, pulling pulling the win off, even away. Now we got Washington State at number 6, USC. Um, what you got?
I'm praying that USC loses this game. I really am. I'm telling you, USC and Ohio State, they're right there neck and neck. As far as the two worst teams that I hate more than anything, college football. But I go with what I see. USC is a better team. USC wins this game.
Yeah, Washington State's a little bit better this year than I kind of gave them credit to be. But at the end of the day, I think the Trojans' talent is still just going to be too much for them right now. I would love to pick Washington State to win this game as an upset because they did get votes to get into the top 25 this past week. But I'm going to go with Trojans at home. Next game, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I'm just going to say we got the BYU going to Indiana, Indiana to fight the Fighting Irish. I've got BYU in this because for some reason, if Arkansas can pull off that win, that will help BYU, and I think BYU is a better team. So.
Yeah, and of course, Notre Dame. They had that one. They scored a lot of points against North Carolina. North Carolina's defense isn't that great. BYU wins this game.
All right, next game. I'm going to enjoy this so much picking against them. We got the Hawaii traveling to San Diego State. Who you got?
San Diego State. It's not going to be close.
Yeah, I've got San Diego State. I am now hashtag on the road for Hawaii to be the worst team in the country. They're only one spot away, so I'm gonna go with San Diego State to try and make that happen. That stern letter still gonna go out after this show, so still look forward to that. Now we've got NFL picks. I don't have mine pulled up right now. If you want to go ahead and pull off that first game from that.
Yeah, Indianapolis travels to Denver.
Um,
That's a Thursday game.
I think I'm gonna go Indianapolis. I think at the end of the day, Denver is just not a good team. As much as it hates me to say. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go Colts.
Well, here's the good thing. Neither's Indianapolis. They're just not very good. But I agree with you. I'm going to go with the Colts. Next up, the Giants take a travel to Green Bay, Wisconsin.
I'm gonna go Green Bay. I'm gonna go Packers. I until Aaron Rodgers is not the quarterback of them, I think they've always got a chance to win the game. I'm gonna go Green Bay.
Yeah, same. Chargers at Cleveland.
I agree with Alex with what he said about the Chargers. They're pretty much Baltimore from last year. I'm gonna go Cleveland. I think even with Jacoby Brissett, they're somehow gonna pull out this win. At home. I'm gonna go with the Browns.
I'm going with LA. Chicago at Minnesota.
I'm gonna go Minnesota. Like I said, they're still one of my favorite teams in the NFC. And I just don't think Chicago's quite there yet.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, if this were at Chicago, I would roll the dice on this one, just for the fact is they do play better at home. But I'm also going to go with Minnesota. Tennessee takes a trip to DC to take on the Washington Commanders.
I'm sorry, my child was screaming at me. Who is playing the Commanders again?
Oh, that would be Tennessee.
Tennessee. Yeah, I'm gonna go Tennessee. At the end of the day, the Commodores, the Commanders aren't a very good team. So.
Yeah, they're really not. Houston travels to Jacksonville.
I've got Duval in this. Again, Houston, they're surprising me with how they're playing. This year they're better than what I thought, but at the end of the day, I think Jacksonville has made a bigger leap to be good or better than what Houston has. I'm gonna go with Duval at home.
Yeah, Jacksonville as well. I've got them at home. Seattle travels to a depleted New Orleans team.
I think Gino gets it done. It's gonna be indoor. Gino's been playing very well these last 2 weeks. I think Seattle gets it done.
New Orleans has been very depleted. I mean, this is going to be a good game. I think New Orleans. I think New Orleans rebounds this week, though. I just got a feeling they're going to rebound. The Atlanta Falcons, coming off a win, travels to Tampa Bay.
Again, I think it's just a matter of Atlanta's just not quite there. I've seen kind of like spurts of them looking really good on offense and then really bad. And then with that Tampa defense, I don't think we're going to see another outcome like that like we did last week against the Chiefs. And uh to keep it short, the Falcons are not the Chiefs. I'm going Tampa Bay at home.
And the same. Miami takes a trip up to play against the. I'm guessing they're the Jersey part of the Jets instead of the New York Jets. So, anyway, they're still the New York Jets. So yeah, Miami, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be without Tua this week as well.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be without Tua for a couple weeks, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know how good Bridgewater is gonna play. I didn't really get to catch him coming in for Tua afterwards. Um, but I'm gonna go with the Jets. I liked how Zach Wilson played last week. Um, and yeah, I'm gonna go with Jets. It's very surprising. If Tua was for sure gonna be in this game and 100% healthy, it would obviously be Miami. But my biggest question mark right now is Teddy Bridgewater. How is he going to play? Is he going to play like the guy that we saw in Minnesota and at the end of his Saints career, or are we going to see him like he was in Carolina? We don't know. So as for that reason, I'm going to go Jets.
That is very true. And for all those reasons, I'm also picking the Jets. Pittsburgh travels to Buffalo.
Kenny Pickett's first start. Um,
Happens
not
to be against Buffalo. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
not the one that he would probably want to be at Buffalo. I'm sure there's gonna be some kind of like crazy weather. Always seems to be some crazy weather going up there in Buffalo, New York. So I'm gonna go Bills, but I think Kenny Pickett plays well. I don't think it's his fault that they lose this game.
It's going to be a completely 100% his fault if they lose a game because he's a starting quarterback, and the quarterback always gets sacrificed. Buffalo wins this game. Uh, two, uh, two bad teams right now that looking on the way up. Detroit going to New England.
I haven't heard any news on Mac Jones. If Mac Jones was for sure playing in this game, I would go Mac Jones. Now, don't get me wrong, Bailey Zappi came in and played well for New England, but at the end of the day, they're just not the same team that they are with Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones does make them a little bit better, but I'm gonna go with the Lions, getting the win in New England.
I'm going to go opposite way. I'm going to go New England. And I know that they played well against Green Bay, and I'm really not going off of that. It's just Detroit has been a little I had Detroit winning. I think it was 2 of its first 4 games, and of course 1 and 3 it's not completely terrible for the first 4 games. But considering that there's still a lot of things that both teams have to figure out. But New England being at home, and of course if I at the end of the day, I think New England's defense is much better than Detroit's. I'll pick New England. San Fran coming off a big win against the Rams. They travel to Carolina, and right now Baker Mayfield looks awful right now in Carolina. Who do you got in this game?
Yeah, I think San Francisco is a better team. I think they've got the better quarterback right now. Baker Mayfield again. I've always been a fan of him, but he's just not playing really well right now. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a system. I don't know if his receivers getting open. I don't know if it's offensive line, which that's what was a big question mark last year was Carolina's offensive
Mm-hmm.
line. But I'm gonna go Jimmy G and the 49ers. They surprised me with how they played against the Rams last week. I'm gonna ride with the Niners on this.
Yeah, I'm also going to ride with San Francisco. Carolina has just proven to be the team that everybody expected them to be, just not very good. Philly goes on the road to face Arizona. Philly is the last undefeated team left. Does Arizona get the job done?
No, I don't think they do. I think Philadelphia continues to be the only undefeated team right here. Um, Arizona looked a little bit better last week than they did the week before, but at the end of the day, I did pick Philadelphia to win this division, or their division. I'm gonna go with Jalen Hurts. He's playing outstanding. That team looks great. AJ Brown looks good. Miles Sanders can still probably get a little bit better. But at the end of the day, that they're looking good. I'm going with the Eagles.
Yeah, of course, Arizona is still trying to figure out. They're still trying to find their identity. I mean, of course, they've been trying to find their identity since they went in. Where they win their first 8 games last year, then they lost quite a bit of them afterwards. So yeah, I mean, they're still trying to find their identity. I'm gonna stick with Philly as well. The Dallas Cowboys travel to Los Angeles to face the Rams.
I'm gonna let you pick this one, man. Last week you got your first right prediction with the Cowboys. I'm gonna follow your lead on this.
If the Rams could score, I would pick the Rams. But the Rams are just not getting it done right now on offense. They're having to pass the ball way too much. They're having to rely on Matt Stafford too much. Matt Stafford does typically, in his career, he does typically play well against the Cowboys. But I'm going to give Dallas the nod on this game, Shane, because it's just based on their defense. And right now, Cooper Rush is playing out of his mind. So regardless if Dak comes back this week, which I think they're eyeing next week, I don't know if they're going to eye this week or not. And of course, if I'm not mistaken, I think Dallas lost to LA last year at this time. I could be wrong. I don't remember because I think last year it was in Dallas, but I don't remember. But yeah, give me a road win for the Cowboys.
If you would have told me before the season started that Dak Prescott would have went out in the very first game of the year and Dallas Cowboys were 3-1 behind Cooper Rush,
Mm,
I would have told you you're out of your fucking mind. But
Yep, yep.
like you said, Cooper Rush is playing great football right now. He's doing what needs to be done. Hopefully, like I said, my only issue right now is that run game with Dallas, but I think they figure it out. I don't know what, but I think I've got a feeling that Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, whatever it may be, I think they figure it out this game. And like you said, I don't know right now if LA can score. Which I mean, Dallas has been right there on that brink, scoring between 18, 25 points a game. I'm gonna go with Dallas on the road.
Cincinnati goes on the road to face Baltimore.
Um, both teams, I thought very high up coming into the year. Both not where I thought they would be at this point in the year. I thought right now both teams would probably be 3-1, maybe 1-3-1, 1-4-0. But me personally, I have more faith right now in that Cincinnati offense than I do Baltimore. I'm gonna go with the Bengals, uh, in this one.
Yeah, and for just what you just said, of course, the Bengals, they've started to look a little bit uphill. They're protecting Joe Burrow just a little bit more. Baltimore right now, they're just like it's like defensively they look lost. I know they played well against Buffalo. That was the best defensive performance they've had so far. But I think Cincinnati wins this game in close fashion. Then the last one, our Monday night game, Las Vegas travels to face the Chiefs of Kansas City.
Um, I think Vegas comes out and surprises us and make this one a little closer than what people are wanting. But at the end of the day, 3-1 Kansas City Chiefs. They've got Patrick Mahomes, and right now they're playing better football. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs at home.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I had Vegas winning this division, Shane. I had Vegas on this high expectation rope this year, and they have just not played well. They have not played up to par at all this entire season. There's a couple of games that they should. I mean, they should be 3-1 right now, Shane, not 1-3. That's just the bottom line of it. And of course, I think if I'm not mistaken, Shane, I think I had Vegas winning this game whenever we did the first NFL predictions. I think I had picked Vegas to win this game just to set a toner for the division. But Kansas City right now, they're playing very good football right now. I know they have that one loss on their shoulder, but they're not as bad as the Vegas Raiders are right now. I've got Kansas City as well.
Alrighty, well, any other thoughts about any other games or anything going on in the football world before we start closing out the show?
Go ahead and close us out. Go ahead and close us out. Nothing else today.
All right, man. So this has been a little longer show. And I blame Alex for it. He's not here to rope me and Ricky in, and me and Ricky always have great conversations. So that's what I'm blaming this on. But guys, be sure to whenever you're watching this, whether it was live here right now or recorded later, be sure to leave us a like, hit the subscribe button. Go be sure to hit the links down below. That's where our Twitter is. That's also where you're going to hit our Discord link to where you can join in on the conversation, and as well maybe buy some merch that's already in our current store and our website that's linked below, or maybe check out some Agent Ink stuff that's going to be coming out soon. Be sure to use our codes for Rogue and Wayward Beard Company. With that being said, looking forward to the week of football. Hopefully the Razorbacks can bounce back from a loss. Hopefully our teams win this week, whatever it may be. And thank y'all for listening to a terrible football show, guys. See y'all next week.
Hogs, go Hogs! I hate Ohio State. Whoever's playing Ohio State, go not Ohio State.